The grand chamber of the Galactic Council glittered with the light of 1,000 stars streaming through its crystal dome. Ambassador William Grant stood tall at the speaking podium, his blue suit crisp against the swirling colors of alien delegates. For 3 months, he had tried to be diplomatic. For 3 months, he had smiled through insults disguised as advice. Today, that would end. The human delegation rejects this proposal, Grant said, his voice steady despite his anger. We did not travel across the stars to become your pets. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Vordaxian delegate, Counselor Zextrol, rose from his hover seat. His 6 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of irritation among his kind. Ambassador Grant misunderstands, Zextrol said. Classification as a protected species is an honor. Many young races would be grateful for our guidance. Susan Miller, Grant's aide, leaned toward him and whispered, "They're not going to back down, sir." Grant nodded slightly. He had expected this. The Council had treated humans like children since their arrival. Earth had developed faster than light travel on its own, without alien help. This fact alone made the older races uncomfortable. "Perhaps the ambassador needs time to consider the benefits," said the Malorian representative, her translucent skin pulsing with green light. "Humans are still new to space travel. Mistakes could be costly." Grant recognized the threat behind her words. He looked around the chamber at the 12 elder races that controlled the Council. For 40,000 years, they had decided which new species could join their community and which could not. They expected humans to feel lucky just to be in the room. "My team and I have considered your proposal carefully," Grant replied. He gestured to his small team seated behind him. Susan Miller with her tablet of notes, Alan Rivera studying alien faces for reaction, and Captain Olivia Wright in her formal military uniform. "We find it unacceptable." The chamber grew quiet. No species had ever rejected a council classification before. "What exactly do you find unacceptable?" asked the council chair, an ancient being from the Araxian species, whose name translated roughly to wise observer. Grant took a deep breath. The travel restrictions that would turn Earth into a tourist destination. The technology limits that would keep us dependent on your markets. The military oversight that would leave us defenseless. He placed his hands on the podium. Humanity came here as equals, not subjects. Laughter echoed from several delegations. The Pelleran representative actually fell from his perch in amusement. Counselor Zextrol spoke again, his voice dripping with fake kindness. "Equality must be earned, young species. Your civilization is barely 5,000 years old. Some members of this council remember when your kind lived in caves." Grant looked to Captain Wright, who gave him a slight nod. They had discussed this possibility before the meeting. "Then we have nothing more to discuss," Grant said simply. He gathered his papers and turned to his team. "We're leaving." Alan Rivera's eyes widened. This wasn't in the plan they had shared with Earth's government. "Sir, the protocols." "Protocols written by them. For their benefit." Grant cut him off. "Pack up." The council chamber erupted in confusion. Translator devices struggled to keep up with the sudden outburst of alien languages. "You cannot leave these proceedings," the council chair declared, standing for the first time. "No species has ever." "Then we'll be the first," Grant interrupted. "Until this council is prepared to treat humanity as equals, Earth withdraws from all discussions." As the human delegation walked toward the exit, the noise in the chamber grew louder. Some delegates shouted threats. Others demanded they return. A few sat in shocked silence. Captain Wright leaned toward Grant as they reached the massive doors. "They think we're bluffing." Grant smiled slightly. "They'll learn." The doors closed behind them with a heavy thud that echoed through the chamber, marking the first time in 40,000 years that a species had voluntarily left the Galactic Council. They had no idea what they had just lost. Dr. Catherine Bell stared at the star map floating in her lab. Tiny blue lines connected various star systems, forming a network that only human eyes had ever seen. These were the Bell corridors, named after her when she discovered them 5 years ago. The Galactic Council still had no idea how important these pathways were. "Are you sure walking away was the right move?" she asked, not looking up from the map. Ambassador Grant stood on the other side of the room. He had just returned from the disastrous council meeting. "They left us no choice, Catherine. They wanted to treat us like children." Catherine nodded slowly. She understood better than most. When she had discovered the strange folds in space-time that allowed instant travel between certain points, she could have shared the knowledge with the alien races. Instead, she and engineer Frank Martinez had worked in secret to build ships that could use these corridors. "The Council thinks these are natural phenomena," Frank said, walking into the lab with coffee mugs for everyone. His hands were stained with engine grease. "They have no idea we can control the entry points." That was humanity's ace card. While other species traveled through normal space using standard faster-than-light drives, taking weeks to cross large distances, human ships could jump instantly between systems connected by Bell corridors. Better yet, Catherine was close to figuring out how to create new corridors where none existed before. "How long until they notice something's wrong?" Grant asked. Catherine brought up a new display showing the movement of ships across Council space. "Our transport companies are already pulling out. I'd say they'll feel it within days." Human ships had quietly become essential to trade across 3 sectors of space. Using the secret corridors, they moved goods faster and cheaper than any alien competitor. Now those ships were heading home. "Captain Wright is recalling our security forces too," Grant added. "The Council didn't even realize how many monitoring stations we were operating." Frank laughed. "They were too busy looking down on us to notice we were running half their defense networks." Outside the lab window, Earth glowed blue and green against the blackness of space. Around it, hundreds of ships moved in careful patterns, the combined might of humanity's star fleet. It wasn't the largest force in the galaxy, not even close, but it was the only one that could use the Bell corridors. "Do you think they'll come begging?" Frank asked. Catherine zoomed in on a particular section of the star map where several blue corridors crossed. "This junction near the Arcturian border is crucial for their defense fleet. Without our monitoring, they'll be blind there within a week." Grant smiled slightly. "I don't want them begging. I want them treating us as equals." A light flashed on Catherine's console. "Speaking of which," she said, "we just got our first message from the Council. Apparently, they want to clarify the unfortunate misunderstanding from today's meeting." "Let them wait," Grant replied. "I think we should let them experience life without humans for a while." Catherine nodded and shut down the message. On her star map, the first red dots were appearing. Shipping delays already starting as human vessels disappeared from the lanes. "We spent 300 years thinking we were alone in the universe," she said quietly. "Then we find out there's this grand Galactic Council, and they treat us like we're nothing special." She looked up at Grant with determination in her eyes. "Let's show them how special humans really are." Frank raised his coffee mug in a toast. "To humanity's Independence Day." Grant and Catherine raised their mugs too. Outside, more ships were arriving in Earth orbit every hour as humans withdrew from Council space. The galaxy was about to learn an important lesson about underestimating the newest species on the block. The Bell corridors glowed blue on the map, a secret web that connected the stars. And only humans held the keys. Patricia Donovan frowned at the message on her screen. As CEO of Terran Freight Logistics, she had just given the order to recall all 200 of her ships from Council space. Thousands of cargo contracts would go unfulfilled. Alien businesses would lose millions. And it was only the beginning. "Are you sure about this?" asked her vice president, standing nervously by the door of her office. "We've spent 5 years building these routes." Patricia nodded. Ambassador Grant was clear. "All human businesses are to withdraw immediately." She looked out the window of her orbital office at the blue curve of Earth below. "Besides, the Council needs to learn what we're worth." Across the galaxy, the effects were already starting. On the trading world of Sol Prime, Alien dock workers watched in confusion as human ships disconnected from loading stations and departed without warning. In the mining sectors of the Orion Arm, resource extractors found themselves without the special human-designed equipment needed to process rare minerals. But the real panic began 20 days after the human walkout. In the Grand Hall of the Commerce Guild on Centauri Beta, alien business leaders gathered in emergency session. The room buzzed with angry voices speaking dozens of languages. "My company has lost 30% of its value in 2 weeks," shouted the Tyrellian trade minister, his scales turning bright red with rage. "The humans were handling 60% of our shipping." A holographic display in the center of the room showed trade routes throughout Council space. Red lines marked disrupted pathways where human ships had operated. Nearly half the map glowed red. "How did we become so dependent on them?" asked a Malorian representative, her translucent skin pulsing with worried blue light. "They've only been in Council space for 7 years. The answer was simple, though few wanted to admit it. Human ships were faster, their routes more direct. Using their mysterious travel technology, they could deliver goods in days that took other species weeks, and they had charged less for the service, quickly dominating the shipping industry. Now they were gone, and the galaxy's economy was feeling the pain. On Earth, Daniel Hayes sat at a small desk outside Ambassador Grant's office. As the junior diplomat assigned to handle Council inquiries, he had been very busy for the past 3 weeks. "I understand your concern," he said to the holographic image of an important-looking alien with 3 eye stalks. "But the ambassador is not available for meetings at this time." The alien's skin darkened with frustration. "This is Councillor Vrex of the Pellerin Combine. I demand to speak with Grant immediately. Our medical supplies are stuck in transit, and people are suffering." Daniel maintained his polite smile. "I'll add your name to the waiting list, Counselor. The ambassador sends his regrets." After ending the call, Daniel checked his list. 37 council representatives had requested urgent meetings today alone. Ambassador Grant had instructed him to be politely unhelpful to all of them. In her laboratory, Dr. Catherine Bell continued monitoring the effects of the human withdrawal. Her screen showed increasing disruption across council space. Supply chains were collapsing. Prices for basic goods were rising sharply on worlds that depended on human shipping. "It's working even faster than we predicted," she told Grant when he visited that evening. "They really didn't realize how much they needed us." Grant nodded, looking at the data with mixed feelings. "I don't enjoy causing hardship, but they left us no choice." Catherine pulled up a new message on her screen. "The Arcturian Confederation is making moves along their border. Without our security patrols, they're testing the Council's defenses. And so the security crisis begins," Grant said quietly. "How long until the Council realizes this is just the start of their problems?" Catherine checked another screen showing a countdown timer. "I'd say they have about 4 more months before things get really interesting." The Imdari governor stared at the burning city through his office window. 4 hours ago, his world had been peaceful and prosperous. Now, smoke rose from the central district where the Krell marauders had struck without warning. "How did they get past our defenses?" he demanded, turning to his security chief. The chief looked down at his tablet, face grim. "They came through the Vega corridor. The human monitoring station there was shut down 3 weeks ago." This was the third wealthy Imdari world hit in 2 days. The pirates had appeared from nowhere, stolen billions in precious minerals, and vanished before Council defense ships could respond. The pattern was the same each time. They used routes that had been secure when humans were watching them. In the Council's central security office, alarms flashed on dozens of screens. Commissioner Telak stared at the galaxy map with growing horror. Red dots showed attacks across 3 sectors. Without human security forces monitoring key corridors, pirates were moving freely through once protected space. "Get me Earth's Defense Coordination Office," he ordered. After several minutes of delay, a human woman appeared on his screen. The insignia on her uniform identified her as Colonel Samantha Powell. "Commissioner," She said with a polite nod. "How can I help you?" "You know exactly why I'm calling," Tlax snapped. "Pirates are using the corridors your people abandoned. 3 Imdari worlds have been attacked. We need your patrol ships back immediately." Colonel Powell's expression remained neutral. "I understand your concern, Commissioner. However, as non-members of the Galactic Council, we are no longer obligated to provide security services in those regions." She paused before adding, "We wish you the best of luck with your pirate problem." Before Tlax could respond, she ended the transmission. On Earth, Colonel Powell walked from the communications room to the monitoring center, where Ambassador Grant was watching the situation unfold. "They're panicking," she reported. "The Krell marauders hit exactly where we predicted." Grant nodded, studying the galaxy map. "And the Arcturians?" "Moving troops to 3 border systems," Powell replied. "Without our fleet presence, they're pushing at the edges of Council space." For decades, various human security firms had established monitoring stations at key points throughout the galaxy. Using their unique travel technology, human ships could respond to threats faster than Council forces. Gradually, the Council had come to rely on this human presence without acknowledging its importance. Now that humans had withdrawn, the carefully balanced security system was falling apart. In a small meeting room on Moonbase Alpha, the Human Leadership Council gathered to assess the situation. Ambassador Grant sat at the head of the table with Dr. Catherine Bell, Patricia Donovan, Colonel Powell, and several other key figures. "The security crisis is developing faster than expected," Powell reported. "Border conflicts have broken out in 7 systems. The Krell pirates have hit 15 wealthy worlds. The Council's defense fleets can't cover all the gaps we left behind." Grant looked around the table. "Are we taking this too far? Real people are getting hurt." Patricia Donovan leaned forward. "The Council had years to recognize us as equals. They chose to treat us like children instead. The Imdari were among the worst," Dr. Bell added. "They voted to restrict our research access because they said humans think too unpredictably." Colonel Powell pulled up new data on her tablet. "We've just received 17 urgent security assistance requests from Council worlds. They're offering 3 times our previous payment rates." "Decline them all," Grant said after a moment's consideration. "This isn't about money." As the meeting ended, Grant stood by the window looking at the blue Earth hanging in space. The Council had dismissed humans as newcomers, too primitive to deserve equal standing. Now they were learning just how integrated humans had become in galactic society. On his tablet, another message appeared, this one from the Dimensional Stability Initiative. With humans gone from that project too, a new crisis was about to begin. The security situation was bad, but the scientific emergency would be far worse. Dr. Ben Howard cleared his desk at the Galactic Science Academy. After 5 years of groundbreaking research, he was going home to Earth. His alien colleagues watched in silence as he packed his few personal items. "You don't have to leave," said Professor Zulax, an elderly Melorian scientist whose translucent skin had faded to pale blue with age. "Your work on quantum field manipulation is too important." Ben paused, holding a small hologram of his family. "All humans are withdrawing from Council projects, Ambassador Grant's orders. But our medical project will collapse without you." Zilax's voice trembled. "The neural regenerator is almost ready for testing." Ben felt a twinge of guilt. The device they had been developing could repair damaged nervous systems in most known species. It would help millions of patients across the galaxy. But orders were orders. "Perhaps you'll finish it without me," he said, knowing it wasn't true. His unorthodox human thinking had been key to solving problems that had stumped the other scientists for decades. As Ben left the lab for the last time, alarms began blaring in the east wing of the academy. The Dimensional Research Section was reporting problems with their monitoring equipment that required constant human oversight. Across Council space, similar scenes played out in hundreds of research facilities. Human scientists packed their bags and returned to Earth, leaving critical projects without key personnel. progress that had accelerated dramatically since human arrival now ground to a halt. On the frozen world of Rigel Prime, Dr. Lisa Rodriguez supervised the shutdown of the largest human research station in Council territory. 47 scientists were boarding transport ships with their equipment and data. "Director Khan is begging us to leave at least a skeleton crew," her assistant told her, holding up a message tablet. "He says the dimensional tiers are growing unstable without our monitoring." Lisa looked at the massive detection array that human engineers had built to study the strange rifts in spacetime that had begun appearing near densely populated systems. Unlike the Bell corridors that allowed for instant travel, these tiers were dangerous, unpredictable phenomena that threatened entire planets. "Tell him that Earth has been studying these tiers for centuries," she replied. "We learned to manage them on our own when similar rifts appeared in our solar system. Perhaps the Council should have valued our experience more highly." She gave the final shutdown order. The great machines powered down one by one, their lights fading to darkness. Without human monitoring, the Council would be flying blind when new tiers appeared. Back on Earth, a meeting of the Combined Scientific Authority was in progress. Dr. Catherine Bell presented the latest reports to Ambassador Grant and the human leadership. "The withdrawal is having the expected effect," she said. "Progress on 17 major medical research initiatives has stopped completely. The energy production projects at Deneb and Altair are failing without human engineers, and most critically, the Dimensional Stability Initiative is now completely unmanned." Ambassador Grant studied the data. "Any signs of new tiers?" "3 small ones near the Pleiades cluster," Catherine replied. "The Council doesn't have the technology to detect them at this early stage. By the time they realize what's happening, the tiers could threaten inhabited worlds." Grant considered this information carefully. "We're not monsters. If lives are in immediate danger, we'll provide the location data, but not the containment technology." Asked Dr. Howard, who had just returned from the academy. "Not yet," Grant replied. "The Council needs to understand that humans aren't just helpful additions to their research teams. In many cases, we're essential." Catherine pulled up a new report on her screen. "We've just received word that the Council Chair is planning to personally visit Earth. This is unprecedented." Grant allowed himself a small smile. "Then we're making progress, but they'll need to offer more than just polite words this time." Outside the window, Earth's orbital stations were crowded with returning ships. For the first time in years, all of humanity's brightest minds were gathered in one place, waiting to see if the galaxy would finally recognize their true worth. Council Chair Ilara Voss never imagined she would visit Earth. In her 200 years of life, she had considered humans barely worth noticing. Now, 1 year after their dramatic walkout, she stood in her private chamber preparing for the most humbling moment of her career. "The delegation is ready, Chair Voss," her aide announced. "All 12 elder species have sent their highest representatives." Voss nodded. Her reflection in the mirror showed a tall, elegant being with silver skin and eyes that had seen the rise and fall of many civilizations, but never before had she seen a galactic recession caused by the absence of a single species. "The latest economic reports?" she asked. "Devastating," the aide replied. "Trade volume down 40% across all sectors. The price of basic goods has tripled on outer worlds. 17 significant conflicts have erupted in regions formerly patrolled by human forces. And worse than all that were the scientific emergencies. The dimensional tiers were growing, threatening major population centers. Without human expertise, the Council's scientists were struggling to monitor them, let alone contain them." "And the humans know we're coming?" Voss asked. "They've been informed, though Ambassador Grant has not confirmed he will meet with us." That was the final insult. After traveling across half the galaxy with the most powerful delegation ever assembled, they might be left waiting at Earth's doorstep. The journey to the Sol system took 3 weeks in the Council's fastest ship. As they approached Earth, Voss looked out at the blue planet surrounded by an impressive network of orbital stations. Human ships moved in careful patterns, sleek and efficient. Their technology had advanced remarkably in the year since the walkout. A terse message from Earth directed them to dock at Lunar Colony 1. Not the grand welcome on Earth itself that protocol demanded, but a modest facility on the planet's gray moon. "They're making us come to them on their terms," grumbled the Vordaxian representative. "Counselors Extral. This is beneath our dignity." Voss gave him a cold look. "Your suggestion to classify them as a protected species is what started this crisis. You will be silent during negotiations." The delegation was met by junior officials and escorted to a plain conference room with a view of the lunar surface. There they waited for 3 days while Ambassador Grant considered his schedule. When he finally appeared, Grant looked relaxed and confident. He wore a simple blue suit and carried only a small digital tablet. There was no bow, no formal greeting this protocol required. "Welcome to Luna," he said simply. "I understand you've come a long way." The council representatives sat stiffly across the table, their formal robes and ceremonial decorations looking overdone in the plain room. The contrast was deliberate, Voss realized. The humans were showing they didn't need pomp and ceremony to have power. "Ambassador Grant," Voss began, "the Galactic Council acknowledges that there have been misunderstandings in our previous dealings with humanity." Grant raised an eyebrow slightly but said nothing. "The withdrawal of human participation from council affairs has created certain difficulties," she continued carefully. 17 wars, economic collapse, and dimensional tears threatening populated systems," Grant said flatly. "I would call those more than difficulties, Chair Voss." The representatives shifted uncomfortably. They weren't used to such direct speech. "We are prepared to revisit humanity's classification," Voss offered. "Perhaps a special category could be created to acknowledge your unique development path." Grant shook his head. "That's not enough." He placed his tablet on the table and slid it toward her. "These are our terms for returning to cooperation with the Council." Voss picked up the tablet and read the first line. Her eyes widened slightly. "Full Council membership with equal voting rights. That's reserved for founding species." "Times change," Grant replied simply. "We're prepared to resume cooperation, but as true equals this time." The delegation erupted in protests, but Voss raised her hand for silence. The galaxy was falling apart without human participation. She had no choice. "We will consider your terms," she said with as much dignity as she could muster. Grant nodded. "Take all the time you need." He stood to leave, then paused at the door. "Though I should mention those dimensional tiers will reach critical expansion in about 2 weeks." The message was clear. The clock was ticking. The Great Hall of Earth's United Nations building had never hosted such an unusual gathering. Representatives from 12 ancient alien civilizations sat on one side of the room, while human delegates sat on the other. In the center, Ambassador William Grant and Council Chair Elara Voss prepared to sign the document that would forever change galactic politics. "The Sol Accords," Grant said, looking at the final text on the screen before him. "A new beginning for humanity and the Galactic Council." After a week of intense negotiations on the moon, the talks had moved to Earth for the signing ceremony. The Council delegation had balked at many of human demands at first, but as reports of worsening crisis flooded in from across Council space, their resistance crumbled. Outside the UN building, crowds gathered to watch the historic event on giant screens. The past year had united humanity like never before. Their withdrawal from Council affairs had proven their worth to the galaxy and to themselves. Chair Voss picked up a ceremonial pen. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, I accept the terms of the Sol Accords." Her hand trembled slightly as she signed. For a being who had lived 2 centuries, this moment represented a profound shift in the order she had always known. The Council had never treated a young species as an equal before. The terms of the agreement scrolled across screens throughout the hall. 1. Earth would receive full Council membership with voting rights equal to founding species. 2. Human representatives would be appointed to leadership positions in key Council institutions. 3. The classification system for technological development would be rewritten, removing the hierarchy that had placed humans near the bottom. 4. A formal apology would be issued for the cultural misunderstandings that had led to the initial breakdown. As Grant added his signature to the document, applause broke out from the human section. Dr. Catherine Bell smiled from her seat in the front row. The Bell corridors would now be officially recognized as a human discovery, with fair compensation for their use. "This is only the beginning," Grant said as the ceremony concluded. "Humanity has much to offer the galaxy if we're respected as partners rather than treated as newcomers." Chair Voss stepped forward. "The Council acknowledges that our traditions sometimes blind us to new possibilities. Your species has shown remarkable qualities that we fail to appreciate." It was as close to humility as the ancient diplomat had ever come. After the ceremony, Grant met with his team in a small side room. Susan Miller, Alan Rivera, Captain Olivia Wright, Dr. Bell, and others who had been with him from the beginning raised glasses in a toast. "To standing our ground," Grant said. "And to what comes next," added Dr. Lisa Chen, stepping forward with a tablet. "The Council has approved my proposal for the Interspecies Cooperation Initiative. This had been one of humanity's key demands, a new organization under human leadership that would identify other emerging species who might have been marginalized under the old system. We weren't the first species they looked down on," Lisa explained, "but we'll make sure we're the last." Outside, night had fallen over New York. Stars twinkled in the sky, stars that now felt closer, more connected to Earth than ever before. Human ships were already returning to their routes across the galaxy, restoring trade and security. Human scientists were resuming their research, with new respect and authority. As the celebration continued around him, Grant stepped to the window and looked up at those distant points of light. He thought about how far humanity had come, from their first hesitant steps into space to becoming essential partners in galactic civilization. Was it worth the risk? Dr. Bell asked, joining him at the window. Grant nodded. Sometimes you have to walk away to show people what they've lost. In chambers across the galaxy, the news spread quickly. The humans had returned, but everything had changed. The species that had been dismissed as barely civilized newcomers was now helping write the rules. The galaxy would never be the same again.